Happy Black Friday, everyone. Hope you're all out there grabbing some awesome deals. But while you're shopping, we're here at UTalk. We listen. Serving up something a little different today. A Black Friday deep dive into a story that's got everyone talking. Big thanks to our sponsor, the OtisWho Network, for making this deep dive happen.
Always great to be here.
So imagine this, okay? You're right in the middle of this super intense volleyball tournament, right? The energy is crazy. Everyone wants to win. But then teams start dropping out, like forfeiting matches left and right. They all refuse to play against one team. San Jose State, and get this, Boise State, they actually win their quarterfinal match. And then they pull out of the whole tournament. Have you ever heard of anything like this?
I mean, it's definitely not your typical tournament. This isn't just about volleyball anymore. This is bringing up some big questions about fairness and inclusion in women's sports.
Okay, so let's back up for a sec. Boise State, they boycotted regular season matches against San Jose State. Then they win their quarterfinal, and then they drop out. What's going on there?
Well, the thing is, Boise State isn't alone. You've got Wyoming, Utah State, Nevada, Southern Utah. They all refuse to play against San Jose State. It's like you're making a statement.
Right, but what are they trying to say? I mean, you'd think they'd just come out and explain these boycotts, but it's been pretty quiet. Although the Nevada players did release a statement, they said something like, "We refuse to participate in any match that advances injustice against female athletes." But that doesn't really clear things up, does it?
No, not really. But if you look at the bigger picture, things start to make a little more sense. There was a lawsuit filed against San Jose State in Colorado. They were trying to ban a player from the tournament. Allegation that she was transgender.
Wait, so we've got boycotts, lawsuits, and a player whose identity is at the center of it all. This is getting complicated. And to add to that, a judge ruled that the player could play, and a federal appeals court even upheld that decision. But here's the thing. Nobody has officially confirmed the player's identity.
Yeah, that's right. It's like we're missing a key piece of the puzzle.
And hold on, there's more. Idaho's governor, Brad Little, he signed something called the Defending Women's Sports Act. This executive order basically changes how Title IX rules are interpreted in Idaho. It really emphasizes the biological differences between men and women in sports.
So now we've got another layer to consider.
It's like everyone's playing the same game, but with different rules. So what happened to the tournament after all these teams forfeited?
Well, with all those teams out, San Jose State automatically moved on. They ended up going straight to the championship match without even playing in the semifinals.
Wow, so these boycotts actually changed the whole tournament. This isn't just some theoretical debate anymore. It's having a real impact.
Yeah, exactly. This is real life, and it's forcing us to deal with some tough questions.
Okay, so we've talked about the timeline, the lawsuits, the political stuff, and the impact on the tournament. But let's zoom out for a minute. What does this all mean for women's sports in general? What are the bigger implications here?
I think this whole situation is bringing a lot of attention to the debate around transgender athletes in women's sports. It's something people have been talking about for a while, but now it's really front and center.
Yeah, it's like everyone's trying to figure out how to be inclusive and fair at the same time. On the one hand, you want all athletes to feel welcome, to have the chance to compete. But then there's this argument that letting transgender women compete against cisgender women, that it might create an uneven playing field.
Right, and that's where things get really tricky. There's this whole debate about the physical differences between men and women and how those differences could affect athletic performance. Some people say that transgender women who went through male puberty have a physical advantage, even after hormone therapy. But others say that's oversimplifying things. They point out that there's a lot of variation within both men and women.
It's like we're trying to understand this really complicated mix of science and social issues. And it doesn't help that it's all happening against this backdrop of political polarization.
Absolutely. You've got groups on both sides trying to use this issue to push their own agendas, which makes it even harder to have a real conversation.
Yeah, it's almost like the volleyball court has turned into this battleground for all these bigger issues.
And that's why it's so important to really dig into this, to try and understand all the different perspectives, because at the end of the day, this is about real people's lives.
We can't forget that. There's a player at the center of this. She's probably going through a lot right now. And then there are the teams trying to deal with this really difficult situation, and even the fans who are struggling with their own beliefs and biases.
We need to try and approach this whole thing with empathy, to respect everyone involved, even if we don't agree with them.
When we started this, I thought we'd just be talking about this one volleyball tournament. But it's become clear that this story is about so much more.
Yeah, it's like a microcosm of all these challenges we're facing as a society. When it comes to inclusion, fairness, and understanding people who are different from us, this conversation isn't going away anytime soon.
So how do we move forward? How do we create a world of sports that's fair and inclusive for everyone?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I don't think there's one simple answer. But I think we need to start by having open and honest conversations.
We have to be willing to listen to each other, even when it's hard.
We have to question our own assumptions.
And we have to find ways to make sure everyone feels safe, respected, and valued.
You know, I actually think sports can be a really important part of this conversation because at their best, sports teach us about teamwork, about resilience, about striving for excellence. And they can be this powerful way to promote understanding and break down barriers.
But for that to happen, we need a culture of respect and inclusion at every level, from kids playing sports to the pros.
And that's a challenge that goes way beyond volleyball. It's a challenge for all of us.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive: boycotts, lawsuits, politics, and the whole impact on women's sports. But as we wrap up, I keep thinking about solutions. Can we actually create a system that's both fair and inclusive? One that works for everyone?
That's what we're all hoping for, right? It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of collaboration and open minds. There's no easy fix. But we can't just give up. We have to keep looking for solutions.
So where do we even start?
Well, one thing that really stands out to me is the need for more research. We need to better understand the physical differences between transgender women and cisgender women, how those differences actually play out in athletic performance. And that research has to be unbiased and rigorous.
Because right now it seems like a lot of the arguments are based on assumptions and anecdotes, not hard evidence.
Exactly. And until we have a clearer understanding of the science, it's tough to create policies that are both fair and based on facts.
Another thing that's been missing is the voice of transgender athletes themselves. They're the ones most affected by these policies. But we don't often hear their side of the story.
I totally agree. We need to create a space where they feel safe and supported, where they can share their experiences and perspectives. Their voices are essential to understanding this whole issue.
This controversy has really highlighted some deep divisions in society about gender, inclusion, and fairness. And these conversations go way beyond sports.
Absolutely. We're seeing these same debates in education, healthcare, everywhere. It's not just about volleyball. It's about how we define ourselves as a society and how we treat each other.
So before we go, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the biggest thing is to stay curious. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and don't be afraid to challenge what you think you know. This is a complex issue with no simple solutions. It's going to take a lot of effort from all of us.
And remember that there are real people at the heart of all of this. Transgender athletes, cisgender athletes, coaches, parents, fans. We need to approach these conversations with empathy and respect.
And lastly, don't lose hope. Yeah, it's a challenging time, but it's also a time of great opportunity. We can create a world that's more inclusive and equitable, not just in sports, but everywhere. It'll take time and work and listening, but I believe we can get there.
Well said. This deep dive has been a roller coaster. We've explored a controversy that's captured the nation's attention. And while there are no easy answers, it's clear that this conversation is far from over. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time on You Talk, We Listen.